Welcome into the Tech Ed Podcast. This is Matt Kirchner, your host. We are the #1 podcast in all of STEM and technical education. Let me begin this episode by asking a question. Who is the president of your state's technical or community college system? Don't know the answer? You should. I think we all know that our technical and community colleges have a huge role to play here in the United States of America. They are the lifeblood in so many ways of our workforce, whether it's healthcare, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's technology, whether it's financial services, public safety. The list goes on and on and on. Without our technical and community colleges, we have huge challenges here in the United States of America. So thankful for the great people that work in those organizations and the great people that lead them, one of whom is with me today. I'm proud to introduce to our audience Layla Merrifield. Layla is the president of my home state's technical college system. Of course, that is the Wisconsin Technical College System. Now, we have a nationwide and even international audience, and so don't tune out if you're not right here in Wisconsin. We're going to talk in general about the incredible value that our technical and community colleges offer to our students, to our employers, to our communities across the state of Wisconsin and all over the United States of America. With that, welcome to the studio of the Tech Ed Podcast, my friend Layla Merrifield, president of the Wisconsin Technical College System. Layla, so awesome to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Good to be here.
For sure. We're going to have an awesome conversation. I have so much tremendous respect for the work that you do, the work that happens in our technical colleges. As you know, we're huge supporters here at the Tech Ed Podcast, not just of securing the American dream for the next generation of STEM and workforce talent, but for the incredible work that our technical and community colleges do here in the United States to help us secure that American dream. So we'll get into that, but I want to start with this. You stepped into your role. It's been almost a year. I think it was September of 2024, if I'm not mistaken, that you stepped into the role as president of the WTCS. Now we're almost a year in. Let's ask a couple questions about that first year and start with this one. What is something that you know now that you maybe didn't know a year ago?
Well, I've been with the WTCS for a really long time. I joined the system in 2013. So I've been really, really fortunate to have so much background and so much experience within the system. I knew what I was getting into, stepping into the role. I think some sort of lessons learned over the first year are things like take time off occasionally. I think that's a really good, really good lesson that, you're just driving so hard every single day. It's really important to kind of step aside and take some family time occasionally. In so many ways, this first year has just flown by. Like it feels like a week ago that I stepped in so many ways. But we've accomplished a lot in this first year. I feel really good about it. If you'd asked me a year ago, will you have passed Workforce Pell? By the time, a year passes, I would have said, no way. We've got so much more work to do on that. So that was a really pleasant surprise.
Yeah, for our audience, Workforce Pell, I'm certainly familiar, but let them know exactly what that is.
Yeah, Workforce Pell is a brand new policy passed by Congress over the summer that is going to allow us to use prorated Pell grants for short-term credentials. So we've really come a long way in working with Congress over the last 10 or 15 years to build momentum for that policy shift. And you have to understand that so much of what happens in higher education is driven by federal financial aid policy.
Right.
So if you can shift financial aid policy, in many ways, you can shift higher ed. And certainly our colleges are looking for ways to creatively tap into that fund source and make sure that our students who are pursuing workforce credentials, high quality credentials, but that are shorter duration, they're still going to have access to financial aid if they need it, if they qualify. That's huge for us in a system that has really invested a lot of time and effort in building out career pathways with stackable credentials.
Right.
Shorter term credentials that can build and build and build towards longer term credentials, degrees, diplomas. We're really proud of that. I think it's a great step.
Right. Well, and when you think about, the need in the economy these days and for lifelong learning, for people changing careers, we may have a new need in a company, in a particular market space that requires some upskilling, requires some training, maybe redirecting our learning a little bit, but doesn't necessarily require a 2-year or 4-year degree. And so what I'm hearing from you is that Congress has now made funding available to individuals seeking short-term credentials and certifications, as well as the longer-term pursuit of degree programs as well.
Yeah, that's right. These are programs that fall between $150 and 600 hours. So pretty short term, but in so many ways, they can be really important for employers for jumping into the workforce right away, for upskilling. If you've been in a particular career, but you just need to add on a credential and you haven't completed a post-secondary degree yet, yeah, that's going to make it a lot more affordable for folks to attend.
Agreed. And we're huge advocates, and thanks for your incredible advocacy on behalf of not just Wisconsin, but really the entire country. And I know you've got a political operative background working both sides of the aisle, and I know you've got tremendous relationships on both sides, and you need to in a position like the one that you have. And so nice to see the U.S. Congress, which can be divided on so many things, coming together on the idea of Workforce Pell. So I think we have to make sure that we're giving that credit where credit's due. As you know, I spent a lot of time across the Midwest, and I would say without exception, everybody that we're working with doing it for the right reasons. These are not easy jobs. You deal with all kinds of challenges day in and day out. And so really, really grateful and thankful for all the great people doing incredible work in our technical and community colleges, providing opportunities for students and also helping them get past some of the challenges that come their way along the way through a technical college or a community college journey. Speaking of challenges here, kind of closing out this first year for Layla, any major challenges that you either didn't expect or that you think we're facing in the technical college system?
I'd say higher education overall, the workforce development system overall, are in a period of change and development, growth, hopefully, and evolution.
Yep.
I think higher education in many ways is going to be challenged in the 21st century to continue to grow and evolve. Looking back over the last 100 years, the United States has really led the world in how we have leveraged our higher education systems to grow our economy and to really dominate the global economy. But today we have serious competition
For sure.
all over the world.
Yep.
And I think we are challenged, those of us who work in this sector, to think differently, to learn from the things that are happening overseas, and what our employers and our students and our taxpayers are telling us here in the United States. We've got to listen to that feedback, adapt to it, find ways to address it, and find ways to move forward and continue to grow our economy in the way that we have all come to expect and demand here in the United States. I think in so many ways we've been incredibly privileged. Folks of my generation, for sure. I was born at a time when we were still in that sort of post-World War II prosperity phase. We've had some bumps and challenges along the way, but we've navigated that really incredibly well, I think. And, it's such a privilege to now be raising my son in this economy, in this country, and look around and see the incredible opportunities that surround us. But if we want to continue that, if we want to continue to push forward and think about the next generation of industry, the next generation of energy, the next generation of health sciences, we can't rest on our laurels.
Right.
It's going to take a lot of hard work, creative thinking, and innovation on our part.
No question. It took a lot of hard work to get where we are. I think it's going to even take a greater degree of hard work to get where we're going. Certainly education in the next 10 years probably isn't going to look anything like it did in the last 10 years. And then you think about all the disruption that's coming. We really do need to evolve as a technical college system and as higher education in general. You talk, Layla, about some of the international competition that we're seeing. And as you know, I spent a little over a week in China in August of this year, and it was really, really eye-opening, some of the things we saw on the education side. I mean, I met with a ton of tech companies, advanced tech companies. The first observation I had is that almost to a person, the people leading those companies, who are all Chinese nationals, were educated in the United States, which tells you something, right? Whether that's what it looks like in the future, that was the first eye-openers. Almost every single one of them, where'd you go to school? Well, I went, it was somewhere in the U.S., which tells you about the power of our education system. Speaking of resting on our laurels, that's not going to last forever. Second big observation that I saw was every company that we met with had a defined strategy for partnering with education. So if you go to the average company in the United States, average manufacturing company, average tech company and say, how are you partnering with education? There's some that are doing it really, really well. And there are a lot of people that would shrug their shoulders and look at you like you came from another planet. In China, every single company is required to have an education strategy, every one of them that we met with. So they're developing separate products for education. They have separate policies and strategies for partnering with education. The third thing I found that was fascinating and scary all at the same time is that we were told the Chinese government has mandated that K-12 education teach artificial intelligence. And, I'm in a world where we're advocating for more and more, whether it's a technical college or K-12 district, especially middle schools, high schools, getting AI literacy, applied artificial intelligence learning into the classroom. We're fighting this battle of advocacy. We're literally in our greatest adversary, some would argue, in China. It's mandated by their government. And so I think we do have some challenges in front of us. I'm eager to meet those challenges. I know you're eager to meet those challenges. We're going to have plenty of proud moments as we do that. And speaking of that topic, as you look back on the first year, is there one moment that kind of sticks out to you as, okay, I was surprised by some things. I knew what I was getting into, but this is one moment where I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so proud of the work that I'm doing or the work that our system's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of things. I do have one fun fact for you, Matt. Higher education in the United States is a $56 billion export.
Wow.
It's a service export.
Think about that.
It's a tremendous amount of money that folks around the globe spend to send their young people to the United States to participate in the best higher education system in the world. Right. But as you say, we have some things that we're going to need to do in order to sustain that and to keep that up. $56 billion is an incredibly large export. If you go and look at some of our commodities that you might think of as sort of core exports, you'll be surprised. They're smaller than the higher ed sector. So that's one thing. But if I can pivot back to your question around was there one moment that I was incredibly proud? Yeah, we had a victory this spring that I think was a long time coming. It really just encapsulates everything that we're trying to do here in the Wisconsin Technical College system. And that was the day that it was announced that Southwest Wisconsin Technical College, one of our smallest colleges, was named the Aspen Prize winner for Community College Excellence in 2025. The Aspen Prize comes from it and is named after the Aspen Institute, a well-respected think tank in D.C. And the Aspen Institute has identified community colleges as, again, one of those linchpins, right, in American society and the economy that really drives so much of what has made America the incredible place that it is today to live and work. And they recognize that driving innovation, change, development of those community colleges could make a huge difference in the lives of working people across the United States. And so they developed this Aspen Prize to really identify the top tier of community colleges working in the United States today. To begin this prize, it takes 2 years for them to narrow it down to a winner. And they look across the country and say, who is producing really tremendous outcomes? Right. Who is sort of punching above their weight in terms of student retention, student success, student completion? Because we know, so many times students who come through community college doors, because they are open access institutions, right? You don't need a particular ACT score. You don't need a particular high school GPA. Community colleges are built for absolutely everyone. Anyone who is willing to put in the work, come to a community college and we will find a way to help you reach your goals. So given that population that is so wide ranging, students all the way from, valedictorians to students who barely graduated, maybe, trying to address all of those needs and find ways to get them the credentials that they need to support their families and to pursue the career goals that they have for themselves. It's art and it's science, right? It takes a tremendous amount of dedication, listening to those students and what's going to help them succeed. What I'm so proud of at Southwest Tech is that they're our smallest college, right?
In the middle of nowhere. I mean, I've been there many times, but who knows where Fenimore, Wisconsin is, right?
Very rural, very agricultural. They also have some small and medium-sized manufacturers there. They certainly have a number of rural hospitals that are small but critical to the quality of life in those communities. Public safety programs that produce, virtually all of the police and fire and EMTs in that region. they just do a tremendous amount of work for their community. And what Southwest Tech did, their innovation, was that they committed themselves to having personalized student success plans for every single student
Incredible.
who comes in the door. It's a tremendous amount of work. It's a tremendous commitment of resources. It's a commitment on the part of every single staff member. At a school that small, everybody's pitching in on those student success plans. And the Aspen Institute looked at that, and they looked at their board's commitment, the executive team's commitment, and they saw something really special happening in Southwest Tech. So we're all just incredibly proud of that college's achievement, and we continue to support the work that they are doing to implement those student success plans. It's also in many ways an endorsement of the way the Wisconsin Technical College system operates. Right? We were the first apprenticeship state here in Wisconsin in 1911, the same year that apprenticeship legislation passed that created the Wisconsin Technical College system, and took all of these tiny night schools and finishing schools and industrial schools that had been developed by all these local communities and started to organize those into a system that was going to cover every single corner of the state, would be encompassed within a technical college district, organized around of really education for employment and empowering Wisconsinites to pursue their dreams and to have a local college that was going to be responsive to local employers and help us develop those skills that we're gonna, back in that era in 1911, it was the first industrial revolution, right? We're on Industry 4.0 now, today, but back then it was really pretty visionary of our state leaders at that time to say something is changing here, and we need to grow and adapt and keep up with this. We are shifting from a largely agrarian and agricultural and natural resources based economy.
Right.
We're shifting to something else here. We're seeing the development of manufacturing, of industry here.
Huge vision. 114 years ago, too. Hard to believe that the technical college system has been in place for that incredibly long period of time, and to be one of the first in the country, if not the first, right? To put all those colleges together. I've spent time at Southwest Tech, those personalized learning plans. I mean, and think about what that means as a student, right? Being able to know that somebody has sat down, really thought through what are your aspirations, what are your career goals, what are your personal goals, what's your family situation, what's your financial situation, what are your interests, where do you excel academically, and come up with a program that is specific to you as a student. I mean, that's just incredible innovation. And I think it's part of what happens when we have a system like the one that we do here in the U.S., or I should say in Wisconsin, which is decentralized, right? I mean, I spend a lot of time in states like Indiana, centralized community college system. If the president of that system makes a decision, they implement it across the whole state, right? Not exactly the same situation if Layla Merrifield makes a decision today. It doesn't become the law of the land, in quotes, the next day. You have to spend a tremendous amount of time building relationships, building trust with communities, with presidents of these colleges, with the leadership teams, and influencing them in ways that aren't necessarily bossing people around, but more winning people's confidence and their trust over time. Talk a little bit about that. What are some of the challenges that come along with that model? We do have a decentralized model, and for our audience, you should know that every one of our technical colleges, and Layla will correct me if I don't get this perfect, but they operate independently. They have their own boards. They have all their programs have their own advisory boards. So there is no boss of the entire state. There's influence that can come from the state level. Obviously, funding comes from the state level in many cases, but they're making autonomous decisions in their own district. So I have that part of it, right? Correct?
Yeah, correct.
And so talk a little bit about what are some of the benefits of that model, and then maybe some of the challenges you run into in terms of driving change.
Yeah, sure. And every state is a little bit different in how they organize their community colleges and technical colleges and how they govern them, depending on their history and culture, their funding mechanisms. Different things make sense in different states. Here in Wisconsin, again, each of these colleges were originally started by a local community, just deciding that we see a need here and we want to have this. Right. And it's kind of grown from there. We became a more formal, organized system via the state legislature saying, we want to preserve that local autonomy. These are local units of government. And yet we would like to see some coordination and some collaboration and to have some things run the same way. Right. And so we do have some things that are standardized across the state, and generally that's intended to make sure that students, to a certain degree, have certain things they can count on from their local college, no matter where they're going, and that employers have certain things that they can count on, no matter where they live.
Yep.
So things like we have a uniform tuition policy that is set by the system board. So no matter where you go, you're gonna pay the same price, right? Similar to advisory committees, those are required by the system board. The system board approves all programming, all facilities. So those facilities are going to be developed in the same way, even though they're going to be designed specifically for that local community. Sure. So it's a real balancing act. But yeah, you're right. It's there are opportunities and challenges with any system of governance that you choose, and certainly in a shared governance system, you want to have a tremendous amount of respect. And my background within the system, I spent 9 years with the Trustees Association, and so I worked with those local boards, and I still believe that those local boards deserve a tremendous amount of respect and deference on their operational decisions as fiduciaries for those colleges. Right. They play an important role. Those boards have to include, by law, they have to include employers, employees. They have to include a school superintendent from the K-12 sector, an elected official. So we stay tightly connected to the folks who are in those public roles. And those boards represent their communities really well. The reason why we're so successful today, Matt, I believe, is that we have evolved over and over and over again. We have seen tremendous change in this system over time. Some things, though, remain at the core of what we do, which is focus on students, right? Figure out what's going to help them be successful, and focus on employers. And putting those two together and figuring out the skills that we're going to need, not just for today, but for 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. So you mentioned the need to continue to evolve. That is absolutely what's on my mind as I look ahead. I can look back at the past year and say, we had some real wins, we had some great things, and there's a tremendous amount of work to be done moving forward. And there's it's exciting. It's always exciting to work in education when you view education as something that is constantly evolving, right, that is constantly changing. I don't think any of us in today's economy can think that we're gonna be doing the same job the same way 20 years from now.
Yep,
right?
Totally. Yeah.
Absolutely not. I mean, are you doing exactly the same thing the same way as you were doing it 20 years ago?
But not even the same way as yesterday, right?
Not even
close.
It's
changing that fast.
Yeah.
I spent, we were just talking as we were warming up about our mutual friendship with the Wannick family and the great things they're doing here in the state of Wisconsin for education. And there's two things, first of all, my LinkedIn post this morning was a picture of a number of us as we were traveling a couple of weeks ago, and the whole idea about lifelong learning and how, we constantly have to be learning new things, upskilling, creating new opportunities in terms of our knowledge base, because the world is changing at a rate that it hasn't been really ever before. The other aspect is that, and you were talking about continually evolving and how the technical college system has reinvented itself continually over its entire 114-year life now. Is Todd Wannick, CEO of Ashley Furniture Industries, focus on what he says, rebirthing your organization every 7 years, and really, not just as individuals do we need to be continually polishing our skills and learning new things in a world that's changing at warp speed, but our organizations, to your point, have to be revisioning themselves, every 5 to 10 years, because the world that you'll be operating in 7 years from now is way different than the world you were in 7 years ago or the world we're in today. So I think I agree 100%. My world is much, much different than it was, 10 years ago and even 10 days ago.
I think a huge strength of the shared governance model is one, we do have this sort of steady hand of the system board that's really just setting big picture directions for where we want to see the system go. Yeah. But at the local level, these colleges are empowered to be as responsive and nimble and quick on their feet as you'll see, I think, in any system of higher education. These guys can stand up a new program within a matter of a few months.
Yeah, we've seen it.
If they need it. They also continuously discontinue programs. In the past year, we discontinued 70 programs across the state and stood up 55 new programs. So it's a constant churn that I think is exactly what keeps us relevant in an economy that's just always changing.
Well, we have to. I had a meeting with one of your presidents within the last 30 days. They had a collision program. So in other words, you think about the old auto body programs. If you smash your car up, you take it to the auto body. There's some artisan there that has the ability to fix your car, to paint it exactly the way that it looked, and so on. And there's still certainly a need for that, but anymore they just pull the quarter panel off the car and put a new one on. And so in that particular case, they were phasing out their collision program in favor of advanced manufacturing, which was kind of a fascinating change, but it makes sense, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that existed here in our economy in 1911 that we probably don't have careers for anymore. It's good that we're continuously evolving, and I think that's one of the huge values of having this local governance, of being able to respond directly to the people of a community. Who's going to know better what skills, what abilities, what competencies, what learning outcomes that we want in a program than the people that are employing the individuals graduating from a degree program or participating in a certificate program or an upskilling program around a credential, than the people that are right there on the ground employing those people. So super valuable system that we have here in the state of Wisconsin, having both the power of a statewide system office in a board. And you chaired the Community College Association Executives Group for a period of time. You're working with leaders from 25 statewide college systems. How would you contrast what we're doing here with some of the other states where we see some great things happening? Talk a little bit about how we compare and contrast to the rest of the country.
Yeah, like I said, every community college system is a little bit different.
Right.
It's run a different way. Depends on the history and the size, what you can achieve in terms of economies of scale. In a place like California is just very, very, very different than a small state like Wisconsin. I've learned some tremendous lessons from getting to know and become friends with that group of folks. The value of spending time with your colleagues and learning from their innovations. And even though, of course, I'm biased in favor of Wisconsin and the way we do things here, and I think it works really well for this state.
For sure.
I've gotten some of my best ideas. I've stolen them from my friends and colleagues from around the country.
The best ideas are stolen.
Yeah, absolutely. No need to reinvent the wheel. I'm jealous of a place like Michigan. My friend Brandy Johnson leads the Community College Association there. They have a program called Michigan Reconnect, which is something that I'm talking with policymakers here in Wisconsin about. Reconnect, the idea really began with a kernel of a thought during the pandemic, thinking about essential workers and finding a way to thank them for their service and keeping our economy running and keeping our communities going. And what they came up with was, hey, do you want to develop your career?
Right.
Do you have an interest in going back to school? Would you want to go back to a community college, and offering a benefit to those folks to really affordably go back to community college and upskill themselves?
Right.
And continue to grow in that career. It's grown into a much bigger program today. But I think, as we look around our economy and think about the ways that industry is shifting, AI is coming online, some things are going to go away, right? And some jobs we need to go away. My friend Kent Lawrence here,
I know Kent well,
in this area, used to give a great speech called the robots are coming and we need them to hurry, right? And that's something that I think about when I think about those sorts of programs where you're dialing in specifically to folks who maybe didn't finish their college degree or maybe are already working in the industry, and now you want them to grow.
Right.
You want them to grow into management. You want them to lead the next generation for that industry, and finding ways to connect those folks with our technical colleges, I think, is an exciting idea. There are programs around the country called college access networks, which I think hold some potential. We're going to explore that here in Wisconsin and see whether it will work for us or not. That's really about speaking to those younger students who maybe don't view themselves as college ready, or maybe they're first generation and they're just not sure what's involved. What's the benefit to me? What's the return on investment for me to go to college? There's a lot of opportunity costs today when so many of our employers are willing to pay really good wages for entry level positions.
Yeah, right out of the blocks, right out of high school. And so do you do that as opposed to in some cases taking on debt and pursuing a post-secondary
Right.
education. It's a fair debate for them to be having in their head, right?
Absolutely. And they should know, they should have all the information in front of them,
Right.
just so they know what their options are, figure out what they want to do and what's the best way to pursue it. And so a college and career access network might be an interesting idea to get those students the sort of information that they need as soon as possible, particularly for our first generation students who
Absolutely.
might not have another resource there. Thinking about alternative ways to fund dual credit is something that I'm exploring now, and looking at the way that other states invest in dual credit opportunities for their high school students and are really reimagining the high school experience. Like there's no reason, as we think about higher education needing to evolve, are there things that we can do to evolve high school and make sure that that experience, one, works for everybody.
Right.
Number one, it's got to work for all sorts of students with all sorts of interest areas and learning styles.
100%.
And two, again, are they getting the information that they need when they need it? Do they know about the tremendous apprenticeship opportunities we have here in the state of Wisconsin to earn post high school credential with no debt, and in fact making money while they're learning and growing? Do they have the opportunities to really understand what STEM is,
Right.
and everything that can encompass? So helping those students get the information that they need and getting the learning opportunities that they need to earn even college credentials while they're still in high school. That's very possible. Today, here in Wisconsin, I think it's around 4,000 high school students every year earn an associate's degree from a technical college before they earn their high school diploma.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah, they're literally walking across the stage at their technical college, getting their diploma before they walk across the stage at their high school commencement ceremony. That's just 4,000 students. And
that's right.
Yeah, that's just amazing.
And so, our K-12 partners are really, I think they're really dialed into this. They understand exactly what sort of challenges are in front of them, in front of their students, and what the opportunities are. Again, it's another great reason why those local partnerships and that local orientation is so important. I can talk about the importance of dual credit in Madison and try to talk to our policymakers about the importance of funding these sorts of initiatives and that this is the future of education. But those folks on the ground are the ones who are working together to make it happen for families.
Absolutely.
So yeah, really exciting things that, again, I think we've got great things happening in Wisconsin, and yet let's leverage the knowledge and experience of our friends and partners across state lines. Take those best ideas,
100%.
Bring them in.
Yeah, let's not reinvent it. Let's learn from them. I love the references to the state of Michigan. I spent a lot of time over there as well, and technical college system here in Wisconsin, community college system in Michigan have some similarities and some differences, but certainly in terms of focusing on, through COVID, just tremendous innovation, and the legislature tended to work really well with Governor Whitmer during that period of time. Little different there right now. We're kind of, as we record this, kind of looking at what's going to happen with the Michigan budget, and a lot of questions coming out of that process. But really focused and really look closely at Michigan Reconnect, 60 by 30, which was their program there. To the idea is by the year 2030 to have 60% of Michigan residents above the age of 18 holding a post-secondary credential of some sort. I know you're a huge fan of stackable credentials and dual credit, which to me kind of work hand in hand in a lot of cases. Let's touch on that really briefly before I want to get into another topic around neurodivergent individuals in the workforce. But I know you're a huge fan of stackable credentials. There's all kinds of examples. My favorite is, and I can't get through an episode of the podcast with somebody working in technical education without mentioning the automation leadership degree at the University of Wisconsin-Stout here in Wisconsin. Worked really closely with Chancellor Catherine Frank and others, David Ding, on that degree program. Super innovative. 61 credits toward a 120 credit baccalaureate degree just by holding credentials that a student can earn in high school, they can earn in their technical college, they can earn in their workplace. And then another 28 credits, by the way, that I think now over half of the colleges in the state of Wisconsin are transferring to the University of Wisconsin-Stout, 88 credits into a 120 credit baccalaureate degree before a student ever sets foot on the university campus. Everybody wins. The high school wins, the technical colleges win, the university wins, most important, the student and employers win. So talk a little bit about, not just that program, but the stackability of credentials in the future. Is that the way of education? Are we going to have all these on-ramps and off-ramps? Are we going to be less disciplined about 2-year degree, 4-year degree, high school diploma, and more about skills, learning outcomes, abilities, and relevance in the workforce?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think we've got to get away from some of the old models based on the way that it was once upon a time. Again, tremendous investments within the technical college system at both a state and local level on what we call career pathways and stackable credentials. Yeah, I think absolutely institutions of higher education are going to be challenged to increasingly not only recognize the credits that students have earned at their starter institutions or at previous institutions, which is incredibly important. I think credit loss absolutely should be a thing of the past. And recognize what these students have learned, regardless of the order in which they learned it, regardless of what the name of the program was. Let's just look at the learning outcomes. Right. Let's look at the learning outcomes and figure out where that aligns. And I think it's incumbent on those of us in higher education to do that work. The great thing about what Chancellor Frank is doing is that she's putting in a lot of time and effort to make sure that the curriculum aligns. Right, that is sort of the block and tackling of higher ed. This curriculum is aligned in these ways. These are the skills that are being imparted, and we're going to recognize that and make sure that students are saving time, saving money, saving momentum, and getting the credential that they need when they need it. That's absolutely where we need to go, and we have to keep pushing to make transfer, if not seamless, as user-friendly as we can possibly make it.
Right.
We have a ton of work to do, and I think a lot we can learn from other states in the progress that they've made there. Our focus in the technical college system is moving toward, getting away from looking at individual credits and moving toward program to program. Right. Does this program align in its learning outcomes with this bachelor's degree? And if it does, then we want to see that those credits transfer as a block, or see the entire credential transfer as a block, which is the direction that Chancellor Frank is moving. And I think, stay tuned there. Right. There's a lot of work happening. No doubt. You're going to hear some pretty exciting announcements from other institutions in the next year or two. I think that all of us recognize that we could improve, and that in so many ways there's potential to, again, align that curriculum so that it's going to make sense from the user standpoint, from the student standpoint, and importantly, employers are going to know exactly what they're getting. Yep. What are the skills and competencies that make up this particular credential? Let's be really transparent about that, and clear and consistent. And like I said, I think we are moving in the right direction. I've seen tremendous I've been in the system for 12 years, and we have come such a long way in those 12 years.
Totally.
Still plenty of progress to be made. But even moving beyond, the issue of credit loss, I think in the technical college system, we are also focused on credit for prior learning, regardless of where it came from, right? We want to find a way, if it's relevant, if it's aligned with a credential you are now seeking, we're going to find a way to recognize that.
Awesome. Whether
that's crosswalking with military education for veteran students, whether that's recognizing, hey, you've been in industry for X number of years. Right. What skills can you demonstrate? What's your portfolio?
So all these great opportunities for us to work together to make sure that students it's really about creating seamless pathways for students, regardless of where they came from, regardless of where they're going. Let's give them credit for the work that they did. Let's create a seamless pathway so that they're not retaking or relearning or repaying for competencies that they already have just because we have some bureaucratic reason why somebody needs to make a little extra money on tuition, or because we have this kind of archaic way of recognizing competencies that may have made sense 10 years ago or 15 years ago or 50 years ago, but in today's age of on-ramps and off-ramps and all these changes in our lifelong learning and the needs of employers, that we make this as seamless as possible. So it's music to my ears to hear you talk like that, because I think it's really, really important that we continue to morph education to meet as many learners where they are as possible. One group of learners, and I think this was probably the first conversation that you and I had, we had a guest on the podcast talking about neurodivergent workers in the workplace. I know this is a passion of yours. Let's talk a little bit about neurodivergency, why this is important to you, and what you think we should be doing about it.
Well, I think it's an imperative for us in the education sector. I think it's an imperative for our workforce, and I think it's the right thing to do. And so, for all of those reasons, I also have personal connections to folks who are neurodivergent in a number of ways. And as I've taken a deep dive there on a personal level and learned more about it, you know, you start to see the opportunities, and you start to get really excited about the potential. So first, when we talk about, what is neurodivergence? What do we mean by that, right? And the reason why we use that term is because it is so broadly encompassing, right? It means a whole lot of things. So you can think about students who are dyslexic, learners who have dyscalculia, which is just dyslexia, but for numbers, right? Students who maybe they have ADHD, maybe they're somewhere on the autism spectrum, which when you dive into that, it's a much broader spectrum than most of us understand. It can look like a lot of different things. Even I would even throw myself in. I think about myself, as a kid, and I was sort of continually challenged by my classroom teachers because I would be engrossed in a book and miss reading group.
Yeah,
right.
That's awesome.
Because I was a huge, just voracious reader, almost hyperlexic. I started reading when I was 3 or 4 years old, and so by the time you're in second grade, I'm reading Laura Ingalls Wilder, and I don't really have time to interrupt my novel to
who needs
to go
Dick
to
and
reading
Jane when
group.
you're reading this 300-page novel. That's awesome.
And so from there on, my teachers kind of didn't know what to do with me. What are we going to do with this kid?
That's awesome.
So when you think about human brains, they're just endlessly fascinating, right? It's taken us a long time to understand how they work. We're still learning. There's still so much to learn about how brains develop, how they're wired. Can we rewire them? There's just tremendous capacity there. And all of us have tremendous strengths and weaknesses, right? And I think in the education sector and for any employer thinking about how do I maximize my talent pipeline? How do I appeal to the broadest possible audience? How do I have my pick of workers who are going to fit my company's culture and have the skills and abilities that I need? I think it's on all of us to think about maximizing the workforce that we have and developing that human potential. And in so many ways, if you can capture that, if you can find ways to open up what you have going on in your institution, wherever it is, to the broadest possible audience, oh my goodness, are you going to find tremendous opportunities to solve problems creatively and to bring multiple perspectives that are genuinely different and interesting to tackle that same problem. You're probably going to get to your solution faster and maybe in a way that you had no idea was even possible when you sort of dive into it. Well, how does lateral thinking work, and what are these sort of leaps of logic that certain brains have the capacity to make? We don't all have to be linear the way that I am, sort of tremendously linear in so many ways. Sometimes what you really need is really creative thinking to make leaps.
And a little bit of both, right? I mean,
well, that's just it. You want to have different types of thinkers and different types of brains around that table. And those companies that have found ways to tap into that are some of our most successful, say, tech industry partners who saw this potential early and jumped on it and said, this is what we need to do. And if we need to set up our offices a little bit differently in order to tap into that potential, then hey, let's do that.
Elon Musk is the one that comes immediately to mind. I have a younger brother who's dyslexic and struggled through all of the challenges of traditional education and watched him do that. He's now CEO of a multi-million-dollar company, and it turns out that one of the things that they found with that challenge in particular is that individuals with dyslexia spend their whole life not being able to necessarily gather information or learn the way everybody else can. And so if they're determined enough, they don't give up. They just find different ways to learn. They find different ways around those obstacles. And then they get to the workforce, and it's like when an obstacle gets thrown in front of them, it's like, I know how to solve problems. I know how to find a different way of doing this. And it becomes a huge benefit. In my particular case, I talk about this all the time to the point where the audience is probably sick of hearing it. But I was always the kid that couldn't sit still in school, rambunctious, hyperactive, didn't apply himself to his schoolwork, always wanted to be the center of attention. And then I was always getting in trouble for that. And then you get to the workforce, and in my particular case, manufacturing, where it's like, oh, I need boundless amounts of energy to work a long day because we have a big project, or I don't want to spend a lot of time working on something that doesn't have value or that I don't see the value in it, or in some cases, it's just a question of being able to manage a whole bunch of different projects at the same time because you can't pay attention to any one of them for a long period of time. All those things I got in trouble for in school were now like rewarded when I got to manufacturing. And I think the point is that, fine if you're a traditional classroom learner, and we know plenty of them, and in some cases that's a great way to create an amazing future for yourself. But if you're not, if you are that kid that doesn't want to be, learning the 5 spelling words of the day because you can sit down and read an entire novel that was targeted at somebody who's a 20-year-old reader, why not just celebrate that and find opportunities to meet those students where they are, meet neurodivergent individuals in the workplace where they are, create an environment where, yes, you may not excel in a certain area, but there's other areas where there's tremendous value to the organization that we need that, whether it's creativity or it's a laser focus or anything in between. Really, really exciting time. I think with the advent of artificial intelligence, the advent of asynchronous learning, so, letting students learn at their own pace and, kind of take the extra time where they need it, and then sprint ahead where they can. That future of education is where it's at. I'm assuming you agree.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, empowering students to find their way, to maximize their strengths, to find ways to work around their weaknesses. And there's tremendous potential in a framework that I've come to believe in, which is universal design for learning,
Yep.
right? And that is really what it's all about. It's
Explain to our audience what you mean.
Yeah,
by that.
absolutely. So the concept is really, when you think about universal design, it started in architecture, right?
Right.
And thinking through all of the audiences that might come through a public building, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can think about a ramp up to an entrance, right? It's kind of the classic
Sure.
example. Anybody can walk up a ramp, right? But also, folks who are using mobility devices can also use that, and
Right.
they might not be able to use the stairs. And so the same concept can apply to education when you think about providing multiple avenues to convey information and to receive that information back. There are multiple ways, whether it's an audiobook, whether it's reading a book, whether it's watching a YouTube video. There are multiple ways that you can learn how to do something, right?
Right.
So why not go ahead and offer that right up front? And if you think, well, that's so much work, it's more work to do it that way. Well, if you think about in education, we typically think about providing accommodations for
Right.
students who are a little bit outside the norm, right? For how they take in information.
Mm-hmm.
So you might think that the norm is sitting through a lecture and listening to that lecture and learning that way. Well, not everybody learns
Right.
best
Yep.
in
Lots
that way.
of people don't.
Lots of people don't, in fact. So when you think about neurodivergence, you're not thinking about 2% of the population or 5% of the population. You're talking about 20 or 25% of the population.
Sure.
You're talking about a much bigger number when you think about sort of a broad-based definition. And so why not design our learning so that it is accessible to everyone right from the start?
Yep.
There's no need to design accommodations if you design the initial learning experience so that it's going to be accessible to everyone, no matter what your learning style or your learning preference is. And at the same time, providing students multiple avenues to convey that information back to you.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
You don't necessarily need to write an essay about how to weld two pieces of metal together, right? You can just show me.
Welding. That's awesome.
And so when you think about really any sort of educational system that's going to be next generation, that's going to be as efficient and as accessible as possible, I think it only makes sense that we start to orient ourselves in this way. We've got to make the most of the workforce that's here,
100%,
and make sure that everybody here in Wisconsin knows that there's a place for them. Our employers are waiting for them. Our economy is waiting to grow. And we're going to do tremendous things in Wisconsin. It's going to continue to be a fantastic place to live and work. And we're going to hold on to the employers that we have and help them grow their businesses by absolutely making the most of every single person we have here.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. And I mean, there were so many great nuggets in that last answer. The whole idea of universal design. I love great analogies, by the way, first of all, and having worked on my share of building projects and architectural projects over the years, totally get that. And that's a perfect analogy for education. It's like, let's make this place of education, be it a technical college, a K-12 school district, a university, a workforce training program, whatever. Let's meet every learner where they are, and let's find a way to be as creative as possible. So school has to continue to morph, but it really allows us to have all these different creative ways of reaching learners exactly where they are. So that was a really fascinating answer to a fascinating question. And I've got 3 final questions for you. The first one is, let's fast forward the clock 10 years from now, assuming you're president, no reason not to, of the technical college system for those 10 years, and we could write one headline about Layla Merrifield's incredible leadership at the technical college system here in Wisconsin. What would that headline be?
I was never much of a headline writer because I'm so wordy and I say too many words. But I think what you'll see 10 years down the line is there's going to be a continued evolution. Technical colleges are going to adapt and change really quickly, and I believe that we are going to continue to lead the conversation around what higher education is and what it can be.
Right. Awesome.
You're gonna see exciting things from these colleges. People ask me all the time, well, are you worried about the future of technical colleges?
Mm-hmm.
Are you still going to be in demand? And my answer to that is always the same, which is I'm not worried at all. We will go wherever the demand exists. We will evolve and change ourselves, and we're not afraid to stop doing things the old way, and bring in new things. Whether that means offering new credentials, whether that means offering new programs, or as you said, totally flipping on its head what we think about as an educational service. Mm-hmm. We will continue to lead that conversation and go where the data tells us to go, and listen to our students and our communities about what it is that they need, and find a way to reallocate resources and go in that direction. So continued evolution is what you're going to see.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And I look forward to seeing that headline 10 years from now. And maybe it's even further out because, good Lord willing, you'll be in this position for years and years to come. Incredible leadership you're providing. And I just love all these philosophies around higher education in general, technical colleges more specifically. Really exciting to see what those next 10 years are going to hold. 2 more questions. And we've talked all about education already for quite some time, but is there something about traditional education or education in general that would surprise our audience in terms of a philosophy or a thought that you have?
I think that the real strength in technical colleges that I am incredibly passionate about, again, is open access. Technical colleges are open to absolutely everybody.
Right.
It's not where do you want to go, it's what do you want to do?
Isn't that awesome?
And we are going to find a way to get you there. I think you'd be shocked if you haven't been on a technical college campus in the last 3 years.
Yep.
You should go.
Agreed.
It's going to be completely different from what you remember.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see different sorts of common spaces. You're going to see different sorts of labs. You're going to see equipment that you don't recognize. Every time I take a tour, I see something different and something new that I haven't seen before. And I spend a ton of time on our campuses.
Right.
So yeah, I think you're going to be surprised at the types of service that are available, what sort of resources we're bringing to bear, to again make sure that whatever it is that you need in order to be successful, you're going to find it on a technical college campus.
Absolutely. I would add to that different types of students than some people might expect as well. And I think the whatever paradigm somebody has about a technical college student, blow that up, because you see students from all walks of life, all different high schools, all different communities, all different ages, all different interests. And so it's certainly there's no stereotypical technical college student. You've got everybody from the 4.0 valedictorian to maybe the student that needed an extra year to get through high school, or maybe got their GED sometime thereafter, someone coming from the workforce. I mean, it is just an incredible collection of incredible people in the form of your students, faculty, leaders as well, but all kinds of differences from what people might be accustomed to or might think about their technical or community college. So agree 100%. Get out there, spend time with your college. You should know the president of your college as well as the president of your state technical or community college system. One final question for Layla Merrifield here on the Tech Ed podcast, something we ask every single one of our guests. We're going to go back in time. Now, you grew up, I know it was quite a ways south of you. Was it Arkansas? Do I remember?
It was Arkansas.
Yeah, awesome. I'm glad I got that right. I knew it was down in that region. But if we were to go back to that time in Arkansas, let's say you're a 15-year-old student, a sophomore in high school, and there was one piece of advice that you could give to that young individual, what would it be?
Oh, I think I would tell her to enjoy the ride in so many ways. That kid, when I look back, that kid had everything she needed, in terms of consistency, showing up every day, a willingness to work really, really hard, and outwork everybody.
Awesome.
I think that kid was. I don't even know where that kid came from in so many ways. But I think lessons learned though over the past 30 years since I was 15. Yeah, lean on your friends
Yeah.
when you need help.
Right.
Bet on yourself always,
Mm-hmm.
and enjoy the ride. Life is a journey. You can't predict where it's going to go. I certainly didn't have a particular. I never thought I'd end up in this job, but I knew that what I wanted to do was work to make the world a better place. For the people around me, for my community, for my country, and public service, was my calling, and that was the right thing for me. And I knew even back then that I wanted to do something in that direction. And what a tremendously rewarding career it brought me. So
Yep. So far with
so
plenty to
yeah,
come.
lean on your friends when you need help. Bet on yourself always.
And if you do that, you will enjoy the ride. We've certainly enjoyed the ride with Layla Merrifield here today on the Tech Ed Podcast. Great conversation about the incredible things happening at the Wisconsin Technical College system, about the incredible disruption that's happening in education, how you're continuing to be part of leading that disruption, but always being mindful of students, of employers, of faculty, of staff, of the great people that make our technical and community colleges the incredible institutions they are. Can't thank you enough, Layla, for spending time. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks so much for having me, Matt.
And thanks for being with us on this episode of the Tech Ed Podcast. What a great conversation we had all around everything technical education, especially at the technical and community college level. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, and I certainly did. We had all kinds of references that came up over the course of this episode. We have the best show notes in the business, and you will find those. We'll put them at techedpodcast.com/Layla. That is techedpodcast.com/LAYLA. You will find all of those great resources there. And when you're done, as always, check us out on social media. You'll find us everywhere, including TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you are, we are. We would love to hear from you. And we look forward to seeing you next week on the Tech Ed Podcast. Thanks for being with us.